To the Celtic Way morning briefing. It is Tuesday today. I just didn't have my microphone plugged in, so I've completely chucked it today. I thought it was Wednesday. Or I've thought it's Wednesday for pretty much the whole day, guys. So hopefully you two are on some sort of form. I've just checked out for the season, I think, pretty much. Kevin, it is Tuesday because you're on. How are you getting on?
Aye, great. What a time to be a Celtic fan.
Yep.
I've just, last night, I watched that entire game again because having read all the Sunday and Monday papers, I thought, was I on the electric Smarties when I was watching it? Because the narrative and by my good friends in the sporting press in Scotland seem to be entirely different from mine. There's all sorts of inventions and weird and wonderful narratives being offered. So I thought I have to watch this game again just to see if I was wired to the moon while I was watching it. Because either I was or they are.
So what were they saying and what are you saying?
Well, I mean, so I read the Sunday Mail and the Daily Record, and some of the comments in the Mail, I won't mention the names, but you can imagine who they are. So they ranged from Rangers dominated Celtic throughout. Rangers players, man for man, were head and shoulders above the Celtic players. I thought that's a nonsense. So I watched it again, and of course, Rangers turned it up a bit in the second half, but they get 2 shots in target, none of which troubled Joe Hart. And of the very few kind of elegant, decent passages of play, Celtic were the authors of them all. There was half a dozen really good combinations where we opened them up, especially down the right. Well, in the second half down the right, in the first half down the left. And I remember my feelings, as the game advanced. I never felt in any jeopardy when Rangers came forward. I know they rampaged forward a few times in the second half, but I don't remember at any time where I thought, we're under a bit of pressure here. I mean, obviously they got a few corners, and Tavernier can do with corner kicks. It's just extraordinary. Some of the nonsense that's been coming out. I mean, one exception is Michael Grant in the Times. The Times have downgraded their coverage of Scottish football, but his was more realistic. But I mean, just absurd.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. There was only a couple of things that gave me fear in that game. There was an attack they had. The only one they had from open play was late on, and it was the one where Sima kind of choked a shot. That was the one where I thought, I don't like this. The corners were giving me the fear, but I agree with you, Kevin. Other than that, the first half especially, I watched, and it was the calmest I think I've ever been watching, but certainly for a final. When you compare it even to last year in that League Cup final, I remember being incredibly nervous for that. And during that first half, I just felt pretty in control. I guess Celtic gave me nerves more than Rangers, because I think we did play a lot of slack stuff. And the clock gave me nerves as well, because as it went on, I thought if Rangers somehow, fluke one here from a corner or whatever, then we might not have time to come back. But I think anyone rewatching that game would see one team trying to play football and another team just trying to put the ball long. Ryan, how are you today?
Things are good, yeah, and just enjoying. I don't know if you can maybe hear the echoing. I'm in the office today, so you can probably hear the echoing. Right. No, all good. I'm still buzzing over, or still really, really happy after Saturday's performance. It feels like we're a couple of days on, but the good feeling's still there. I think the good headlines that are coming out of the club as well concerning transfers, I know we'll go on and talk about them. There just seems to be a good feeling around the club, a good feeling. Maybe one of the first times between the fans completely and Brendan Rodgers as well. There seems to be that togetherness all of a sudden that maybe wasn't there at the start of the season. Yes, there was loads of fans that were backing him, but there were some detractors that weren't happy with his reappointment. I think everybody's now on the same boat, or there's a very, very, very small minority of people that don't want him in charge of the club at the moment. I think he's proven himself. He's got a double. You hear sound bites from players like Callum McGregor saying they're looking for the other trophy next year. They're hungry. They want more. They want to be in the Champions League. They want to be winning the League Cup again. I love that. I love hearing that from the players. And yeah, looking forward to hopefully what is going to be a busy summer of strengthening ahead of a big season ahead.
Yeah, we want our other trophy back, I think is what Callum McGregor said. And I laughed at that one. The guy's won how many trophies over the past 8 seasons? He's probably won about 20 trophies in that time. And yet he's still the one that annoys him from this season rather than winning 2. And he's obviously delighted about that. But it's not winning the League Cup that doesn't sit right with him. I mean, imagine they had those standards across the city, would be in some sort of trouble, but they don't. Callum McGregor's the one who does, and James Forrest and Joe Hart and guys like that. Right, okay, plenty to chat about. First of all, exciting news from our sponsors at the top, MPH Boilers. They're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, just in case you didn't know, that's in Fife, with a VIP Vegas themed launch weekend. That's from June the 14th, which I think is the same day as the Euros starts, to the 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So there will be roulette games with instant win prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for bigger prizes if you land on 0 and get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay at Trump Tower in Vegas with a helicopter tour. So don't miss out. You can RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group. That's www.launch.mph.group. Thanks to them for sponsoring. Ryan, we still get this running?
Certainly do. 6 months of access for a single £1. Plus, you could win lunch with Celtic legend Martin O'Neill. Just a wee reminder that anybody that is already subscribed to the website gets automatically entered into this amazing draw. But why not subscribe to the channel just now? Subscribe to the website too. £1 for 6 months. That'll get you sorted until the end of November. On there this morning is my grovelling apology / retraction to Brendan Rodgers. An open letter of apology to Brendan Rodgers, because I've got to be honest, I doubted them in December, January, February time. But in the business end of the season, he's shown why he should be the manager of Celtic. So yeah, I put about 1,000 words or so together, explaining my thoughts, and it seems to have resonated quite well in terms of the views so far, only a few hours after putting it on the website. So if you want to check that out, it's on the website just now. I might even put the link in the comments as well.
Very, very big of you, Ryan.
Good.
Yeah. Did you find was that difficult to do?
No, absolutely not. It was probably the easiest article I've ever written, to be honest.
I have to be. I'm going to be a bit smug here because I backed him all the way, right back. I thought no-brainer to appoint him elite manager. I don't care the circumstances in which he left, because I know there was another story. But I won't write 1,000 words telling everybody.
You speak 1,000 words.
But I'm going to read Ryan's piece.
Yeah. My take on the whole thing was, I was the one, I wasn't the one. I wanted Rodgers in. I thought he was the right appointment because I thought he would he'd be the safest pair of hands. And I think that's been proven correct. I think some of the other managers we were linked with last summer, a lot of them have done really well. The fella Kieran McKenna, Enzo Maresca, even Farioli is now the manager of Ajax. There was another one as well, the boy. Yeah, the guy at Bournemouth, Spanish guy, we're linked to him as well. They've all done really well, which I thank you, Ryan. Which I think is really good, by the way. It's a good sign that the guys we're all linked with, for the day when Brendan Rodgers does move on, the club seem to have a good idea of what they're doing. The point I'm making is, I think as much as those guys have done really well, would they have dealt with the really tough moments this season with the same authority as Brendan Rodgers did? And I'm not sure about that. Listen, I wanted him in. I doubted him at stages of the season as well. I thought it was a watered down version of Brendan Rodgers, and it may well have been at that point in the season. I think over the past 3 or 4 months he has come into his own, and I think now the awkward period is over. The Postecoglou hangover is over, and we can all just push on now, Ryan.
That's exactly the point that I made in the article as well. There was something that happened midway through the season, or maybe 3/4 through the season, actually. For me, anyway, I think it was when he called out the referees at Hearts, even though it was a 2-0 defeat. That's probably one of the biggest defeats in terms of impact in Celtic's modern history, in my opinion, because it just galvanised everybody. Anybody that wasn't backing Rodgers at that point, even though they'd just been beaten, they felt hard done by. They felt like the referees were against them at that point. And it started a siege mentality that went from then until the end of the season. They only dropped points in one game after that, and that was at Ibrox when they should have won. They were a Rabbi Matondo worldie away from a great win at Ibrox. So it did galvanise the team. They got a double at the end of it. And yeah, I did make that point that there was a galvanisation between the support, the players and the manager in that moment. Alistair Johnston was even talking about it. I think I've made this point before. Alistair Johnston said the team still went on their night out even after losing to Hearts. He talked about that in the Celtic View podcast. He said that, this is what we did against the third place team in Scotland with 10 men. We felt like we were the better team for the majority of the match. We knew that we could still do something this season, and they still went on their night out to bond with each other as players and as individuals too. I think that really helps. It shows you the character of this team, the character of the manager too. I feel kind of bad for doubting him, but at the same time, I think a lot of people were, but nobody's doubting him anymore.
Yeah. See, there's some good quotes from Cameron Carter-Vickers today, quoted as saying there was always that belief, and to be fair to the manager, I think that's what he did well for us. He kept us believing and kept a calmness in the group. We're a positive group, and we knew that if we worked together and played for each other, we'd get there in the end. Like, that's all well and good, saying it after the event, but and feeling it after the event, but the fact they were able to do it at the time when, there was a point in the season where, that Motherwell game away, that Hibs game away, the Aberdeen game away, Ross County at home. I remember these games being really, really tough for the team and us not playing well at all. Kilmarnock at home was another one, and they found a way to get it all together. It's funny because we were talking all season, you guys will remember a couple of months ago, how many times did we say, is this the turning point? Is this the match? Is this the turning point? See, looking back, have either of you get any thoughts on what the actual turning point was? What was the moment when you felt Celtic clicked into gear, Kevin? Any thoughts?
Well, there were two or three. There was the last minute victory at Easter Road, where I'd kind of given up the ghost, that we were going to win, and again, I'll mention that tackle by Anthony Ralston, which just goes down as a tackle of the season. That led to the goal. Now, Anthony's not played all that often, and I think Brendan Rodgers talked about him last week and said he'll get more game time, but absolutely saluted his professionalism and his attitude. And I liked to hear that because that points to the harmony within the group, and also, that there's some players who will be match ready no matter how long they've been out for, and can step straight in because, although he didn't play all that often, he had crucial roles to play in the last half an hour at Ibrox. And, he made the winning goal against St Mirren in the last game of the season. And also that was the time you thought, God, we've had nine players that we bought over the summer, and this 10th player, Ida, didn't seem that promising. Nothing to do with his ability, just the fact that he was a kind of discarded Norwich City striker. And when he stepped up, scored those goals, Easter Road, Fir Park, Ibrox, you're thinking, good, one of these players that we bought or is on loan is come straight in and gives us an option. But that Hibs game, and then I suppose also the 2-1 game against Rangers at Celtic Park. Again, we played some excellent football. And Rangers were really sickened by that because they genuinely thought they could take something. At that point, if you look back, the Rangers websites, Rangers supporters I know at that point thought Celtic are vulnerable here. We can take something. And even if they'd got a draw against us that day, they would have seen that as significant. So that was very significant. And something that Kenny Miller said in Radio Clyde the other night, and Kenny, we all know where his loyalties lies. He was at Rangers twice, maybe three times. I know he played well. He played well for us. But he more or less said, look, the scorelines in the last few games against Celtic have flattered Rangers. So even though Philippe Clement said we're not far away, all of them have been really close. Like Saturday and some of the other games, we're a class. We've got players that are a class ahead of them, and when they play, they can't get near us. But those kind of moments, Easter Road, Fir Park, the last Rangers game, the first Rangers game at Parkhead, were really defining moments. They're not playing well, but there's unity. They're digging in. We didn't have a full team. None of the players we'd bought had made a mark. We're a reduced team from last season. The very least we can do is just hang in there. Even the 1-1 draw against Aberdeen, I know we were lamenting at the time we should have beaten them, but we got a 1-1 draw when we weren't playing well. We didn't play well.
Could have lost it.
You get a 1-1 draw against a good, an Aberdeen team that was playing above themselves. That, I think, was also, a good moment, a defining moment.
I've got a couple of answers just quickly. Signing Adam Ida, I think, was a major moment in the season. And strangely enough, I think that couple of games, see when we came back from the final international break of the season, we went into Livingston away from home, and it was the bottom team in the league. They got relegated, not a good season, but I thought winning that game would really set the tone for what was to come. There was no nonsense in that game. It was 0-0 at half time, but the team just came out in the second half. That was the day when Hatate came back as well. That's and I know people are a little bit critical of Hatate at the moment. I thought he was poor in the final, and generally a lot of fans think he hasn't been great. But you look at when he came back into the team and the run we've gone on since he's come back, and that's not a coincidence. The final game I throw in just quickly, Ryan, is the 3-3 at Ibrox. I think not losing that day was huge, and the Rangers celebrations after it.
I've got to throw Fir Park into there as well. The second Fir Park result where Adam Ida sort of came to prominence once again, with that amazing bullet header that he leaps so high to get. And in the great finish, it's a good pass from Alistair Johnston, a good cross into Adam Ida, and he takes it in his stride, just passes it into the back of the net. There was a moment in that game, I was lucky enough to be in the press box when I was watching that game live in person, and Alistair Johnston takes the mask off. He came into that game wearing a protective mask. He takes the mask off, and suddenly it's as if the team gets supercharged as a result of it. Johnston's like, I'm going to play through the pain barrier here. I'm just going to show what it means. This is a guy that, and it's such a cliche, and it's a bit of a colloquial term or whatever, but he gets it as a Celtic player. He's from Canada. He's got that hockey background, but he gets what it means to be a Celtic player, and I think he's get used to the habit of winning at Celtic too. It's no surprise that 5 trophies have been won in the year that he's been at the club. His record, his ratio for games to trophies won must be
games,
incredible. That's a frightening statistic. And for me, anyway, the second half of this season has shown me that I think he is a bit of an upgrade on the player that he's replaced in Juranovic for his defensive abilities. He's just been an absolute catalyst to everything good about Celtic in the second half of this season.
And he's a wee badass. You know, he's
stuck in.
You know, he is. I mean, you know, I'm glad he's on our side.
I think he's a captain in the making. I think if he stays long enough, he could be a captain in the making for Celtic. He's that sort of mouthpiece that Celtic need in and around their team. I think they've got 4 or 5 captains dotted in and around. They've got well, they did have Joe Hart, so they'll have to replace him. But they have Carter Vickers, who's more of an authoritative player on the park, maybe not as much a speaker. Greg Taylor speaks. Alistair Johnston, Callum McGregor, James Forrest is a different sort of captain, but he's a leader. So many leaders in and around the team that have managed to pull Celtic to victory. But I think Alistair Johnston's a great candidate for who could be. I'm not saying right now, I'm saying maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, if he is that sort of player. I think he's a phenomenal player for Celtic at the moment.
I'd like to think he would stick around for that long. I have my doubts. I'm thinking he'll probably want to play in the English Premier League at some stage. I'm not selling him this summer or even next summer, but I think the majority of players, who aren't Callum McGregor or James Forrest, want to do that, sadly. But just quickly, he's got 5 winners' medals. This is from Tim Trivia online, reliable source maybe, I don't know. Johnson averages a winner's medal every 102 days. James Tavernier averages a winner's medal every 1,074 days.
To be fair, people laughed at me when I said that I would take Alistair Johnston over James Tavernier as a right back, as a first choice right back. I don't think anybody's doubting my opinion now on that, because I think he's a better defender and he brings a lot in the attack too. Yes, Tavernier scores set pieces and penalties, but Johnston gives you more on the defensive end, and he gives you that dig in that fight. And when the going gets tough, you know that Alistair Johnston is going to step up and be counted for.
Alistair Johnston is very overrated and a complete liability. What is going on, Pat? Come on. We see this stuff about Ida and Bernardo. Kevin, the update on Ida last night. It's kind of an update. It says that being reported that Celtic are committed to fulfilling Brendan Rodgers' wishes about signing Ida. A figure of 6 million has been mentioned in the region of that. The latest from Portugal on Bernardo is not really an update. It says that Celtic are evaluating whether to move for him, talking about around 6.5 million for Bernardo. Would you sign either of them, both of them?
It's a difficult one. We Ida, yeah, 5 million maybe. However, I need to be brutal about this. We've got probably 10 Champions League games that we'll play. We've got a pot of 100 million quid. That pot of 100 million quid gives us a certain amount of flexibility on where we can go at the top end in a transfer fee. In Europe last season, we and the season before, we dominated some games and didn't really put the ball in the net. Do you pay 5-6 million for a good striker, which Adam Ida is, or do you pay an extra 5 or 6 million for a striker who has got some proven expertise in playing at the elite level in Europe? I don't know. He's a young man. Brendan Rodgers, who's a good judge, said, there's a lot more to come from him, and I'll trust him. Bernardo, oddly enough, I probably would take a punt on him. He's got the pedigree from Benfica. Again, he's very young. In some big moments, as he was fine, in his kind of first season, he's where he's on loan. Great goal against Rangers at Parkhead. Did amazingly. That move of his, the way that he reacted when others at that stage in the game might have been happy to take the foul. Driving at the heart of the Rangers' defence. The shot was really good. that'll have done his confidence no harm. And you know, I think he's a more European type player. I wouldn't be unhappy if we bought him, but you know, the two big positions for me that we need to strengthen in are left central defence and left back, and that is not criticism of Scales or Taylor. It's just if we're playing 10 Champions League games, we need to be looking at those two positions. And that's not to say that somebody like Greg Taylor wouldn't step up. He was second choice when we bought the wee Uruguayan and quickly re-established himself. He sees off challenges, wee Taylor, to his position. Who's to say he wouldn't do it again?
Yeah. He's had, a number of left-backs have come in.
Bolingoli,
Bernabe, Bolingoli, Laxalt, a number of them.
Was Moritz Bauer left back?
He was right. He was a right back. God, Moritz Bauer. For me, you know, I've said I think, you know, Ida hasn't played Champions League yet. I think he's the kind of guy that would take that step up. He's taken every and met every step up so far. Bernardo. For me, definitely, there's we got a comment in there saying, you know, we've seen him doing it. It's just consistency is Bernardo's thing, and really taking games by the scruff of the neck. Ironically, his best stuff has been in the big games. I remember him coming on against Lazio and being pretty good at home. So I want to see consistency. I would sign them. Yeah, I would. It was Atletico. He came on for Hatate. I would sign both. I think if you're looking at 12 million for both, I think that's it's a close to a no-brainer for me, to be honest.
Here's a spanner in the works. Take Paulo Bernardo on loan for another season. Let's see him justify that £6 million.
What if that's not an option though?
If it's not an option, then so be it. I think you'd pay the money, maybe try and renegotiate with Benfica. But if you can get him out on loan, there's other positions that need, you know, sorted. I know that midfield will need sorted because, let's be honest, Matt O'Reilly is going to leave the club in the summer. You would imagine. So there's other positions that need to be sorted. That creative midfielder role will need to be supplemented. Even bringing him on loan would soften that load, I think. And then you have somebody that's used to playing for Celtic. If it was available, if not, then renegotiate, try and get him for 4 or 5 million. Because I think there's a player there. It's just all about nurturing him and giving him game time.
Yeah, I just think, you know, we've wanted for windows and years for Celtic to spend money. We have an opportunity to spend money on two players who have proven that they're able to do it in big games. What's the debate for? If Rodgers wants them in, let's sign them. Listen, we're going to head off now because Ryan, you're getting some training on something today, and it's not necessarily related to video stuff. So, Kevin, thanks very much for your time again. We'll catch up. You're going to keep coming on over the summer, Kevin.
Oh God, keep me away.
Fabulous. We look forward to it. Thanks for your time, everyone. A final shout out just for this offer. We've got 6 months of access for the Celtic Way for £1, plus you could win lunch with Celtic legendary manager Martin O'Neill. Right, everyone.